So one thing that we can address with the anterior pelvic tilt is stretching the hip flexors. As I said, they're short and they're really overpowering the abdominals. So if we stretch them and cause them to lengthen them a little bit, it might help what our issue is. So a typical hip flexor stretch that we see is if Kat is just on one knee and she's pushing that hip forward. So we might call this runner stretch, as what a lot of people call it. So what's happening here, and this is the same if we're doing couch stretch or any other version of hip flexors that has you on one knee, is that the pelvis can actually be still tilted forward even though we're pushing the hips forward. So what we want to try and focus on, this is kind of a first progression to a hip flexor stretch, is she's just going to sit up nice and really tall and bring the hips back a little bit. And what you're trying to do, instead of pushing the hips forward, what she's going to do is she's basically going to squeeze her butt, tuck her tailbone under, and basically try and make a hollow position here. So when you do that, what we're causing is the hip flexors, because at first we were down here and then she did that pelvic tilt and brought it up a little bit. So we're a little bit shortened and then we're lengthened. That's going to increase the stretch by itself. What we can progress that to is if you have some kind of block to put underneath the foot, or she can take this, put it around her foot, and then hold it and basically bring your knee up. So you're trying to lift it up.
Like this?
Yeah. So we're lifting it up. But what we're doing through all of these, if we're trying to lift the back leg, is we're still focusing on that pelvic position. This can apply directly to the couch stretch where your foot's on a wall. Being able to do that stretch with the foot on the wall, so the knee is basically all the way closed, and your pelvic tilt is controlled, that's the highest level of progression and might look simple, but is actually really difficult to do. So I would say with most people, we'll start with this basic one and then see how far you can get while being able to keep the pelvis in line. The second solution that we have to an anterior pelvic tilt, and what this will be is, this is a solution to basically all kinds of back pain, because that is what's usually associated with this kind of posture, is there's lots of pain right here, because we have, if you've got, these are really tight, they're coming together, we might get some pinching or some kind of facet irritation at the lumbar spine, which is basically a fancy way of saying most kinds of low back pain. So what we can try is we're starting with a dead bug. So the dead bug is my personal favorite core exercise, because it can help us control our posture as well as working on the all around the core. So what we're going to start with, this is a very basic entry-level progression to a true dead bug, is we're going to start with that pelvic tilt. Similar to when we were stretching the hip flexor and you're tucking your tailbone underneath, we're doing the same thing on our backs. So what Kat's going to do is she's just going to be laying here, and all she's doing is pushing her low back into the floor, acting as if basically her belly button is being sucked down. So if I were to put my hand underneath her back, it would be crushing it. Or if we had a piece of paper or a band and it's underneath her back and I was to pull, if she's doing that full contraction, then I won't be able to take it out. So the low back is flat. That's the first thing. Second thing is what you can do, and you can do this by yourself. We're trying to bring in the rest of the core muscles, because there is more than just the abdominals. We've got our transverse abdominis that comes around and obliques that go in angles. So what Kat can do is she can take her other hand on this side, put it on the front of her hip bone, on the other side, yep. And you're gonna bring your hand in about an inch and press down there. So while you're flattening your back, you're basically gonna try and act as if you're sucking in your belly button, and you're gonna feel for a bit of a contraction there. Yeah. So this is a very subtle, very tiny thing, but this is bringing in the transverse abdominis as well as some of the obliques, and the obliques will get brought in further once we start with a full dead bug. So what you're going to try and do is, starting off, we're going to do this, flatten your low back, feel this contraction here, and you're going to try and bring one leg up, keeping this activated. So I'm going to get you to try and bring one leg up, good, and back down, and then try the other one. Good. And we only need to go about this far, good, and then back down. The whole time we're trying to keep this. So this might seem very basic, but to a lot of people this is very difficult, especially a lot of us that don't do a lot of core work starting out with any of these activities, as well as those that sit a lot, which is during this quarantine period is a lot of us. So the second progression is we're going to do that same contraction again. Tilt your pelvis underneath, turn on the core, and you're going to bring both legs up, keeping the heels pointed towards the floor. We're going to take one leg and lower it down as far as we can go. Good. If at any point you feel your lower back start to lose its force that it's pressing against the ground with, then we want to stop there. So say if Kat was to push this knee leg forward and then the arch happened, I would want you to stop at the point just before that happened. So if you can get here without losing your core activation, then that's where I want you to stop. If we're able to go all the way with both legs, good. Then what we can do after that is we can bring the rest of the dead bug in, which is adding the arms. So with the arms, we're trying to take our shoulders, bring them down towards the belly button so the whole core is basically compressed together. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this leg and the opposite arm, extend them out, keeping this activated so we can go all the way. That's really, really good. And then come back up. We're also with the heel, we're pointing the heel directly towards the wall, so we're not pointing our toes, we're pointing the heels this time. So this, the next one, you're going to take these legs, this leg, this arm, and go. And that's a traditional dead bug. But the focus here, especially with those that have low back pain, is we're keeping that core really, really solid. So what we're going to pair the dead bug with is a bird dog, which is one of my other favorite core exercises to give people. So what I say the bird dog is it's essentially the dead bug, but it's flipped upside down. So we're not just working on the front core system, we're working on the back, the posterior chain. That is what we're recruiting a lot with the deadlift, because we're squeezing our glutes, hamstrings to stand up. So we are doing that, we're activating those muscles to get back towards the deadlift, but we're doing the same kind of core activation that we did in the dead bug. So basically what we're not going to do is we're not going to bring our back up like a cat-cow. So we're not doing this rounding, we're also not doing the arching. So we're not letting everything relax and come into this lower back arch. We're going to suck the belly button underneath, turn the core on, and tilt the pelvis backwards, keeping a neutral spine. So this is when it helps to have a coach or someone watching you, seeing that you're not arching at the lower back. You're also not bringing it up into the round. So from here, you're going to turn your glute on and push one leg back.